Hi, and welcome to Shmuel Part Bet, Chapter 13, Polyphonic Catastrophe. In Chapter 13 of Shmuel Part Bet, there is a cacophony of intertextuality. References to other stories from Tanach abound, from the story of the rape of Dinah to the tragedy of Pilegesh Begiva, with references to the stories of Yosef and his brothers, Sodom, and more. What all these incidents have in common with our story is that they are all tales of how someone powerless is taken advantage of by those in a position of power. A fitting punishment for David after the incident with Uriah and Batsheva. In our story, Amnon uses deception to seclude himself with his half-sister Tamar, whom he rapes. Afterwards, the response of two men are wildly divergent. David, her father, may be seething with anger, but takes no action. Avshalom, her brother, on the other hand, bides his time for 2 years, and before exacting revenge and killing his naval of a brother. Avshalom, like his father before him, flees to his royal non-Jewish relatives in Geshur, and we are left to ponder questions such as how these events were driven by the Machievellian guidance of Yonadav. Is Avshalom a hero, a villain, or both? Why does David not act? All this and more. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoy this content, please consider giving us a 5-star rating and a brief review. Even better, share this with your friends and help our Torah reach more learners. Thank you. Okay, so previously on the book of Shmuel Part Bet, we saw the Navi essentially duping David into believing that he was adjudicating an actual case when instead he was pronouncing his own fate. We offered a few different readings for what the mashal was about, but at the end, David's sin is exposed. He is told of a severe punishment. His response was teshuvah, right? He repented right there on the spot. We saw that this repentance had the immediate effect of sparing his life, but the punishments are going to persist. The first of 4 members of David's family dies. That's the baby. I don't think we mentioned at the time, but since the child is under 30 days, halachically, he's a naval, so there's no mourning that's mandated. And finally, Batsheva and David have a new son. We'll call him Shlomo Yedidya. And David is summoned by Yoav. That's how role reversals work over here. To finish the battle with Amnon, David is victorious, assumes the crown of his enemy, and despoils and possibly tortures the remaining inhabitants. Okay. One thing I want to touch on very briefly before we get into the next chapter is that even according to the reading of Chazal, that David didn't violate halacha in the Uriah Batsheva incident. I think we can still ask if what he did was wrong. So I want to draw your attention. There's an essay by Rav Aaron Lichtenstein that is really fundamental, and I'll try to share the link afterwards. The title of the essay is, "Does Jewish tradition recognize an ethic independent of halacha?" In other words, can you do something wrong even if you haven't broken halacha? He marshals, I think, quite a bit of evidence to answer that question in the positive, that yes, there is an ethic that's independent of halacha. The question is how you draw those lines. And he gets into that, I think, in a very meaningful way. The fact that maybe David did something wrong, even if he didn't do something halachically wrong, shouldn't diminish David's stature in any way, because David agrees it was wrong and he seeks to address that wrong. Right? That's really the point of what the rest of Sefer Shmuel is going to be about. The rest of the book, at least chronologically, is the precipitous downfall of David as a result of the sin, and David working through the concept of tshuva. That's what we're going to turn to right now. But first, we're going to get a quote from William Faulkner. "Maybe nothing ever happens once and is finished. Maybe happen is never once, but like ripples, maybe on water after the pebble sinks. The ripples moving on, spreading, the pool attached by a narrow umbilical water cord to the next pool, which the first pool feeds, has fed, did feed. Let this second pool contain a different temperature of water, a different molecularity of having seen, felt, remembered, reflect in a different tone the infinite, unchanging sky. It doesn't matter. That pebble's watery echo, whose fall it did not even see, moves across its surface too, at the original ripple's space, to an old, ineradicable rhythm." That is William Faulkner, Avshalom, Absalom. Okay. Without any further ado, this chapter is jam-packed, especially with allusions to other stories in Tanach. So I want you to try to keep your radar attuned to the language and see if we can pick up where and how we're referencing other stories in Tanakh. Okay, we all ready? Okay, let's get started. Pasuk Aleph. Welcome. V'yihi achrei chen. Chapter 13, 2 Samuel, chapter 13. Pasuk Aleph. It was after this whole incident with Natan reprimanding David, and suddenly David is not the main character in our story anymore. Ula Avshalom ben David achot Yafa. Avshalom, the son of David, has a beautiful sister, Ushma Tamar, and her name is Tamar. V'yahaveha Amnon ben David, and Amnon, the son of David, loved her. Okay, there is a lot in this very first pasuk. David is, I think, intentionally being removed from the spotlight. The spotlight here is squarely on Avshalom. This whole story, the story of Amnon and Tamar, which is going to be a tragic story for us to have to go through, is less about Amnon and Tamar than it is about Avshalom. In fact, the rest of the book is really going to be about Avshalom. Avshalom becomes the main character of the rest of Sefer Shmuel, and we're going to have to try to understand where he fits in the genre, in the type. Is he the hero? Is he the anti-hero? Is he both? We mentioned in the last parak that David has another son with Batsheva. His name is Shlomo, and Hashem loves him. There is no indication that, therefore, because Hashem loves him, he is the heir apparent. There is a pecking order, and that is the order of birth. And the order of birth dictates that, first of all, Amnon is the Bechor. Amnon is the next in line to the throne. After Amnon is a child named Kilav. We had this earlier in I think it was chapter 3. Kilav, Chazal tell us, like, basically went to base medrash and never came back.
He's like, I'm not interested, guys. Right. You enjoy the Game of Thrones.
Exactly. And then after that, you have Avshalom. So we have here a very interesting description, not of David's children, but Avshalom's siblings. So Avshalom has a sister who is beautiful. Her name is Tamar. And Amnon, who is David's son from a different mother, loves her. How does that fall out? Like, there's obviously friction there immediately, right? He can't love her because he's forbidden to her.
Yeah.
Same father. So even if it's not the same mother, same father, Vayikra tells us that is asur. Now, I guess I can even point out at this point, there is ample discussion in the Gemara as to where, how Tamar joined David's family, meaning Chazal want to make an argument that Tamar is the daughter of Yafat Toar. Tamar's mother and Avshalom's mother, her name was Maacha. She is from Geshur. We're going to see how all that plays out at the very end of this parak. But it is possible that Tamar and Amnon are not at all related, meaning if Tamar's mother, Maacha, either had Tamar before she became a Yafat Toar. Let's go with that. Right. I think it's the easiest understanding. Not even a half sister, because if it was the way the term, the technical term is harasa shelo b'kedusha v'leidasa b'kedusha. If she got pregnant either from David, let's say she got pregnant from David before she converted, right?
Right.
Even if that happens, as long as the mother converts before the child is born, then the child is still considered a relative. The child is not considered a convert. The child is considered the daughter of the mother and the father. So therefore, the child would still be prohibited to Amnon. Sorry, a lot of technicalities here. Let's keep going. We'll try to cover some ground and see how this plays out. So Amnon loves Tamar. Vayetzer la'amnon lehischalos ba'avur Tamar. And Amnon is so in love with Tamar, and we learned this from Dr. Fleischner back in the Shir HaShirim series, that you can actually be physically lovesick, and that is what he is. Ba'avur Tamar achoso, the pasuk continues to point out that she is in fact his sister, which I think mitigates against this idea that she was not actually, that she's essentially a Gioret and therefore not really related to Amnon. Kibetulahi, because she was a virgin. And it was impossible in the eyes of Amnon to do anything to her. We're already getting shades of the fact that he doesn't just want to marry her. There's something he wants to do to her. Ulamnon Rea. And Amnon has a friend. That's how we're going to translate the word Rea, which is how it should be translated. But the way it's written is Ra, right? Reish Ayin. So Amnon's friend is maybe not so friendly. We're going to see how that plays out. And the name of this Rea, this friend or advisor, his name is Yonadav ben Shim'ah. So David has a brother. When we listed all of David's siblings way back when David was the last to get anointed, so one of them was Shema, and that is Shim'a over here. David has a brother who has a son, and that's Yonadav. So David's nephew is Yonadav. Achi David, the Yonadav, ish chacham me'od. And Yonadav is a very wise man.
So he's evil, but he's also wise.
He's
right.
Shrewd.
Shrewd, excellent. So we've pointed out in the past that advisors tend to give the worst possible advice in Sefer Shmuel, and we're going to see whether or not that is true over here as well. There's actually, from my count, at least 3 different ways to read the character of Yonadav, but let's actually give him a chance to set the stage for himself. Let me just see if we covered everything. I think we did. Okay. So here's the situation. Vayomer lo, and Yonadav says very insightfully to Amnon, Madua ata kocha dal ben hamelech, baboker. Why are you so dal is normally poor. They translate it here as dejected. You say someone is in poor health, right? Same idea. Why do you look so out of it every single day that I see you? Halo tagili. I want you to tell me what's going on. Vayomer lo Amnon, and Amnon says, you picked up on it. No one else picked up on it. So Yonadav picks up on it, and Amnon says, I'm happy to tell you exactly what the problem is, because I guess he trusts him, because he's going to give him some very
like a lovesick teenager.
Right, but he's going to give him some very damning information over here. Vayomer lo Amnon es Tamar achos Avshalom achi ani ohev. Not Tamar, the daughter of David, right? Tamar, the sister of I'm sorry, as Tamar achos Avshalom achi. Tamar, the sister of my brother Avshalom, I love her. That's who I'm in love with. That's the problem. I don't know what to do. So Yonadav is going to tell him exactly what he should do. Vayomer lo Yehonadav, shachav al mishkavcha v'hischal. I want you to lay in bed and act sick. Uba avicha lirosecha, and your father's going to come to check on you. You're the firstborn, right? V'amarta elav. Here's what I want you to say to your father, and let's pay attention to the words because they're going to change. Quote: Tavo na Tamar achosi. Let my sister.
Please.
Emphasis on sister. Please let my sister come. But tavreni lechem, and let her make some lechem, some bread for me to eat. V'asad le'inaya, I want it cooked directly in front of me because I'm so sickly, I have no appetite. So I need something that will stir my appetite, right? You have like, put on a whole hibachi house, and I want it made right in front of me. Es habirya, the food, and here birya means to be healthy, right? So it's food for my health. Laman asher so that I can see, v'achalti miyada, and I will eat from her hand. Okay, so far so good. Now, okay, let's see how this plays out. That is the advice. I'll ask you. That's the advice of Yonadav. Is that good advice? Bad advice? What is the purpose of the advice?
Right.
From your perspective.
Right. Like the thing is, it doesn't solve the love problem if you're just looking at the advice itself.
Why not?
Because, like, unless, I mean, the part that of, hey, by the way, just take her by force afterwards. Like, you could just totally rape her, dude. Like, it's fine.
So let's not get too far. Let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
Doesn't mention the end game.
He doesn't tell him what to do. Right. The problem that Amnon presents is, I love my sister Tamar. We've been told she's a virgin, so therefore she's off limits, meaning she's not out socializing.
Right. Act sick and have her cook for you.
Right.
And ask to have her cook for you.
So a few things. One is what he doesn't say, and this kind of I believe conflicts with Chazal's reading, is he doesn't say, well, you're not halachically married to her, so why don't you just go talk to her? He has to concoct a whole scenario to make her available for conversation. Right? Now, right, it's all a setup. Now, the question is how evil do we want to make Yonadav? Is Yonadav doing all this so that Amnon can have a polite conversation with Tamar, or is he, because he doesn't say what to do after this, right? All he does is he figures out how to get Tamar in the room.
Right.
More than that, he doesn't make any recommendations one way or another.
No, he knows Amnon. He's Amnon's friend. He knows Amnon better than we do. So
fair. So he knows what Amnon's going to do.
Yeah.
That's where you're headed.
Yeah.
Okay. That's definitely a possibility.
He has no connection with Tamar?
Yonadav or Amnon?
Yonadav.
Yonadav is as related to he's
Right.
David's nephew, so he has some
Let me
relation.
talk to her for you. I'll see if she likes you.
Right.
He's his cousin.
He's David's nephew,
The
so he's
cousin of-
Tamar's cousin
Tamar.
So doesn't he have the same
or half cousin, let's say.
So he doesn't have the same link between Amnon and Tamar?
No.
Because from the other side.
Right.
Well, it's on the other family.
Right. Now another
So
thing
we
to
don't know what intentions he has for her.
we don't know what intentions Yonadav has for her. We don't know what intentions right now, at least, Amnon has for her. We're going to find all that out. But what I'm asking is, from what we've seen so far, can we judge Yonadav one way or another? And I think the answer is it may be yes, because maybe he knows him well, or maybe not, because he doesn't. What he doesn't do is say, here's how you're going to get her in bed. He leaves off before that. One other point I want to mention is he could have concocted this whole scenario without David. Why does he bring David into the picture?
Because she won't go to her mother.
Maybe he'll put the kibosh on it.
No, she won't go to her mother wife.
Okay, so you both have hit on, I think, two different readings of this exact scenario. One is I need to get David involved because either she's not going to go unless David commands her to go, or if once you have the king commanding it, then I Yonadav or I Amnon am less culpable. Once the king's involved, then the king said to do it, right? The king it removes some of the culpability. Or the other reading of this is, if I can get David involved, maybe David will figure out how to deal with this whole situation.
Or maybe he'll sit in the room to make sure no funny business happens,
Right.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll sit with you while Tamar makes the bread.
Okay.
You could read it that way.
Right. So, but now let's see how it plays out. Pasuk 6. Vayishkav Amnon. So Amnon lays in bed. Vayischal, and he pretends to be sick, although we already saw he is kind of already lovesick. Vayavo hamelech liroso. The king, just as Yonadav said, the king comes to check on him. Vayomer Amnon el hamelech. Amnon says to the king as follows: Tavo na Tamar achosi. And so far we have a word for word quote from Yonadav. Utlabev le'enai, and instead we have a different word over here. He says, Yonadav says v'tavreni lechem. Amnon doesn't say v'tavreni lechem. He truncates it, and instead he says utlabev le'enai shtei levivos ve'evra miyada, and let her prepare before my eyes 2 levivot, and I will I'll be nourished from her hand. Okay, so miyada is still the same. And maybe the Evra is also the same, but I think there's a dead giveaway here of Amnon's intentions. No lechem. What do we get instead?
Heart bread.
Right. So this is a weird word. The levivot is a weird word, and we actually had this in Shir Hashirim. Libav tani achosi kala. This is a word of endearment, and the word lave is baked in, you'll excuse the pun, to the word. Utalabev le'enai, that she should cook, but he doesn't pick just a stam word cook. She should cook with the word lave in it. Before my eyes, shtei livivot. What are livivot? They are just like we have nowadays. Sometimes you name food after like body parts. You can go to the bakery and order ladyfingers. So these are heart cakes, right? He doesn't say the way Yonadav said that she should prepare bread for me. He says, I want heart cakes from my sister. Okay, David doesn't pick up on the embedded. What's that?
Because it's so corny.
Right, it's corny. So Vayishlach David, and just another thing to point out over here is we mentioned in chapter 11 and 12 all the usage of Vayishlach this, Vayishlach that. There was a lot of the term to be Mishaleach. Here again, David is sending, and the sending doesn't work out too well. Vishlach David el Tamar habaita, and David sends Tamar to the house. Lamor saying, Lechi na beis Amnon achicha, go to the house of Amnon, your brother. V'asi lo habirya, and go make some food for him. He doesn't mention anything about heart cakes or anything like that. Okay. So either, to go back to the reading of Yonadav, either Yonadav intended for this to play out exactly how it's playing out, or he gave Amnon a script in the hopes that David would pick up from that script what Amnon's trying to do, and David is oblivious to what is going on over here. Vatelech Tamar beis Amnon achia. And again, the reinforcement of the relationship between brother and sister over here, I think, beats us over the head. So Tamar goes to the house of her brother, and he's laying in the bed. Vatikach es habatzek, and very matter of fact, she doesn't ask him how he's doing. She takes the dough, and she kneads it and bakes these cakes before his eyes. And she cooks the heart cakes. Vatikach es hamaseres vatitzok lefanav, and now she takes out the griddle and she's frying up we'll call them pancakes lefanav. V'yima'in lechol, and he refuses. I can't eat. I have no appetite. Vayomer Amnon, and now Amnon says, and here I'm going to ask you again to have your Tanach radars up. Hotziu kol ish me'alai. Take. Very good. Okay, yeah. Hotziu kol ish me'alai. Take every person from before me, meaning everybody get out of here. We need the room. V'yetziu kol ish me'alav, and everybody leaves. Vayomer Amnon el Tamar, and Amnon says to Tamar, Havi'i habira hechadar, bring the food to my inner chamber, to me. Ve'evra mi'adech, and I want you to feed me directly. Vatikach Tamar es halivivot, and Tamar takes the pancakes, asher asasa, v'tavela Amnon achia hechadar, and she brings it into Amnon's inner chamber. Some of what you're getting over here is the pacing of the story. We're slowing down the speed of the narrative intentionally to draw out the tension of what's going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that she didn't say hello, she didn't do anything. It's like she's kind of there, not willingly.
Right. She's there to perform an act. She's there. She's there to.
She doesn't want to be there. Like she's just. Like I gotta be somewhere else. Like, what do you want me to feed you to? Like it's an onus on her.
Right.
Haha. No pun intended.
Vatagesh elav le'echol. When she comes to give him the food, vechazekba, he grabs her. Vayomer la, and he says to her, this is terrible. Boi shichvi imi achosi. Come sleep with me, my sister. So he's calling out the fact that she's forbidden to him, right? That she's his sister. He doesn't care. Vatomer lo, and her response to him is, she repeats the same phrase, the same language. Thank you, multiple times. Al, no way, not interested. Al achi, al ta'aneni, ki lo ya'aseh kem b'Yisrael, al ta'aseh hanavela hazos. Don't do this, my brother. Don't force me. These are things like this are not done among the Jewish people to do such a nivala. Okay, where do we have that language?
So interesting. Oh, wait. The Pilegesh Begiva?
Well, we have by Yosef refusing the overtures of Ashes Potiphar. That's one. We have it's a different word that's used by Shem, but there it's described as a cherpa. But it's the same idea that such a thing is not done among Yisrael is recalling the Shem story. It also we also find it by Pilegesh Begiva. Yes.
Yeah, I just want to throw out there a little monkey wrench in the she's really not interested narrative.
Okay.
Rav Pam, Rav Reisman, sorry. Rav Reisman, who's a student of Rav Pam, writes in Pathways to the Prophets that there are certain words that one uses throughout Tanakh that have different connotations, even though they sort of functionally mean the same thing. And one of those pairs is lo versus al. And he says that al is a weak form of no, like
a negative.
Al tomar lo, as opposed to lo. Like lo is like like a straight up don't do it. That it's a strong no.
I mean, it sounds pretty strong from what she's saying.
Afo versus Aye is like Afo is like where physically is this thing? Aye is like something's supposed to be there, but it's not here.
Right, where could it be?
Right, like Ayeka, like where are you? Like you're not here. You're not in front of me in the garden. But he has this whole essay on synonyms throughout Tanakh, and and al and lo are two of the pairs. So he says that al is the weaker one.
And lo means no.
Right. Low is no like
Low means
like
Oh,
in the Akeda, you know, low muma, something like that.
Okay.
Right.
I'll toss
Right.
Right. Don't do.
Right.
Good talk.
Right.
Well, here we're going to see that she offers him kind of a way out. The only other thing I want to point out is telling him that this is a nevelah is already an important phrase, and we're going to see it repeated in the next pasuk. Vani ana olich es cherpasi. How am I going to carry shame like this around if you do such a thing? V'ata tiyeh ka'achad hanivalim. You're going to be like one of the
dead bodies.
One of the lowlifes,
Oh.
right? One of the scoundrels, Israel. But I think that term is used again, nivala and nivalim, on purpose to call our attention to the one person in this book whose name is Naval.
Right.
Now, if you're reading the story and you pick up on that reference, what do you expect to have happen to Amnon?
He's gonna die.
He's going to die. How's he going to die?
Divine. It's rich.
Brother's gonna kill him.
Well, you know the end of the story, but is he? How's he going to die? Let's do this a different way.
Wait, how did Naval die?
At what event will
feast?
he at a feast related to
David.
sheep shearing?
Oh.
And in what state of mind?
Well, he's happy.
Inebriated.
Uh-huh.
Naval was drunk, right?
That's right.
So let's see if that plays out in this parak. V'ata daberna el hamelech ki lo yima'eni mimeka. Now, let's just speak to the king, and he'll take care of this whole thing. He's not going to stop you and me from getting married. No problem. I get it. There's a very your overture is understood, but this is not the way to do these things. We'll go through the proper channels. Now, this is where Chazal hang their hat on. She can't say this if it's not true, because then it holds no water, right? So it must be that really they could be married, and therefore what she's saying to him is like, let's just get married and do this the right way. I prefer the Abarbanel, who basically says, no, she's in a very dangerous situation.
And she's trying to
she'll throw anything she can at the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
First she calls him a naval, and then she tells him this is a terrible idea, and you're going to be embarrassed. I'm going to be, we'll get married, no problem.
That's what seems like the shot.
Okay. But none of this works. V'lo ava lishma b'kola. He won't listen to her voice. In general, it's a good idea in Tanach to listen to the voice of women. V'chazek mimena v'yaneha. He grabs her, overpowers her, and v'yaneha v'yishkav osa. So the way they have translated over here is he lays with her by force. By the story of Shechem, both of these terms are used, and Chazal darshan over there that one is kedarka and the other shelo kedarka.
Uh-huh.
Okay, let's keep going. Where's my tab? Here we go.
And the hate.
So v'yisna eha Amnon sina gedola ma'od. Amnon hates her a great hate after this act is perpetrated. Ki gdola hasina asher snea me'ava asher aheva. The sinner that he has for her, the hatred that he has for her, is greater than the love that he had for her. But vayomer la Amnon kumi lechi, and he tells her to get up and get out. Now, I think we're all familiar with the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos.
Yeah.
What's it say?
Any love that's based on a specific factor will cease once that factor no longer exists, and any love that's not based on a specific factor will basically endure forever.
Right.
Which kind of love is based on a specific factor? Love of Amnon and Tamar. Which type of love is not based on a specific factor? The love of David and Yonadav.
Correct. All that is correct. Beautiful. Now, there is another Gemara that is a little graphic, but I'm going to share it with you anyway because I think it's very important for a clear understanding of the reading of the Psukim. The Gemara wants to understand, it's one thing to say that he hated her as much as he loved her. How could it be that he hates her even more than he loved her? Right? Something had to have happened to elicit even more hate than was there originally. Like there's a certain amount of emotion. It's if it's love and then it converts to hate, then I understand that emotion is still there, just transformed. But to say that there's more hate than there was love requires an explanation. The way the Gemara explains it is that when he was perpetrating the act on her, she fought back, and in fact, she ends up castrating him. The way the Gemara describes it is that she used her pubic hair to essentially cut off the circulation to his member,
A hair
and
tourniquet.
yeah, something like that, and caused him to be castrated. So that is what elicited the extra hate. I think that this ties a lot of things together. Actually, that Amnon is planning to rape Tamar is obvious, but I think what's going on is more than that. The halacha is that when a man rapes a woman, so he has to marry her, right?
Right.
So when she says, "Don't do this," the part of the reason he wants to rape her is because he wants there to be no way out. Once he rapes her, then they're stuck together, right? If she pushes him off, well, maybe you'll get married, maybe you won't get married. But what happens is just what you were saying, what the Mishnah is saying. He wants to marry her so he can indulge his desire permanently. But his desire is dependent on the fact that either she was a virgin or the fact that he has a libido, right? Once that dependency is removed, there's no more libido. So then the whole plan gets undone. It's not just that he fulfilled his. Well, right. It's, in other words, it's not just that he fulfilled his desire and now the desire is gone. It's that he can never again fulfill that desire. That's what induces the rage, right?
Okay. Putting that aside for a moment.
Can't just
Yeah.
make it self-loathing.
Right.
They
You know
have
what?
to deal with this
Okay.
like physical,
Right. So the thing is, like, we've talked about that Gemara about the pubic hair and the thing. Like, I know that like sometimes the Gemara speaks in
Euphemistic.
or colorful language to try to teach us a lesson. I mean,
Well, I want me a lesson.
just the fact. No, you know what?
It gets even more graphic. I
No.
didn't get into the whole thing about, well, Jewish women are not supposed to have any body hair and whatever.
Yeah, so the thing is, like, I mean, I sort of in my brain kind of want to prefer to interpret this a little bit more figuratively. Like, you know what? If you're like, to quote to quote a recent television show that we know, which I won't name right now, once a person once said, like, oh, there's no greater pleasure than being with a woman who wants to be with you or killing a man who wants to kill you. Okay? Like, so the thing is, like, for me, why does he hate her so much? I mean, maybe she's calling him like a piece of trash and a piece of garbage. Like, if you're with somebody, like if a guy
But the
goes
hate only occurs afterwards.
right, but if the guy if a guy is with a prostitute or something, this is why, thank God, I think normal people don't go to prostitutes. But like if a guy's with a prostitute, she's like, and she says after the act, you're a disgusting person. Like you're just grotesque. Like you're an animal.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
Right, you should be ashamed of yourself. Like, that I could see that. Like, there's a reason that prostitutes have to live in fear of being killed, because the anger that comes afterwards, the self-loathing and all that
Right.
stuff that comes out, like that can translate to violence very easily. So like she doesn't need to cut off his Johnson physically for her to cut it off, like, just with words.
So that's
Like,
interesting that you say that. Let's see what she says next. Vatomer lo al odot hara'ah hagdolah hazos me'acheres asher asisa imi l'shalcheni v'lo aval lishmola. She says, don't send me away. It's worse what you're doing now to throw me out than the act that you perpetrated on me in the first place. Because once you've done that, now at least let me have some dignity. Don't throw me out right after the fact. And he refuses to listen to her. Vayikra esna'ro, and he calls out to his attendees who are outside the door. Misharso vayomer shlucha na ezos me'alai. This is terrible. He's talking about her like she's a thing. Throw this out, me'alai from before, me'achutza outside, una'ol hadelas achareha, and lock the door afterwards. We also have that, closing the door after someone in conjunction with sexual sin. That's
I mean,
the
slamming the door. Is
no, but closing the door. We get this exact language by the daughters of Lot and the Malachim when the people of Sodom are trying to
break in.
sodomize the guests. Yeah. So the Na'ol Adel at Acharav is there. Okay. V'aleha ketonet pasim, and she is wearing. Remember, we already saw references to Yosef. Here's another reference to Yosef. She's wearing a ketonet pasim ki kain til b'shena benos hamelech habetulot me'ilim, because this was the dress for the princesses that they would wear.
Colorful.
Either colorful. There's right. So coat of many colors comes from the King James translation.
Right.
There are other translations. Maybe it's a long robe that goes down to the ankles.
Right.
Whatever it is, she's wearing this princessly garment. Vayotze osa misharso hachutz v'nala delet achareha, and the attendant does exactly what he's told to do, and he throws her out.
For once, they do something.
Right. Vatikach Tamar efer al roshan. She takes dust and puts it on her head. Uktonet pasim asher aleha kara'a, and she tears the ketonet pasim. Vatasim yada al rosha, and she places her hand on her head. Vatelech haloch v'zaka, and she goes around screaming in public. So this is important for a number of reasons. First of all, where else do we have somebody who goes around with ash on their head and crying out in public? Mordechai, excellent. Yaakov also tears his clothes and puts ash to mourn Yosef after he's lost from the brothers. Why is she doing this?
To advertise, like if she gets pregnant, like, hey, guess what? I wasn't like messing around. Like,
so advertising is exactly right. So Chazal say that from here is where they established the halacha of yichud even for a pnuya. So there was already a decree that a married woman is not allowed to be in seclusion with someone who's not her husband, but that did not extend to unmarried women, to a pnuya. Because of this, Tamar went around and said, basically, look, if such a thing could happen to me, someone who was very cautious, right? Someone who is at the highest echelons of society. If it can happen to me, then it can happen to anybody. Yeah. I don't want this to happen to anybody else. So she takes the tragedy that happened to her and she uses it as a calling card to make sure it will never happen to anybody else, which is an incredibly noble thing. To have the presence of mind to do that is really unbelievable.
And Avshalom says it's not as bad because it's your brother.
Say that again?
Avshalom tells her basically it's not as bad what happened to you because it was your brother that raped you. It's better to have your brother rape you than the non-brother.
No. No.
I was just reading in English. Bisan, and now my sister, he is your brother. Why is he pointing out that it's your brother?
Okay, so let's get to that in a minute.
He's not arguing with her. He's the one who kills Amnon.
Okay.
No,
but Vayomer, yeah.
We know.
Yeah, he's angry.
But he's trying to calm her down.
Right.
He's right. The rest of it, he's telling her.
Vayomer Ela Avshalom, Achia. And now Avshalom, she bumps into Avshalom, her brother, and Avshalom says, Ha'aminon achich haya imach, was Aminon. This is like a diminutive way of referring to Amnon. Was little Amnona your brother with you? And we know what he means by with you. Viata achosi, and now my sister. Hacharishi, remain quiet. Achichu, he's your brother. Meaning, like, you don't want to. If you continue doing what you're doing, you're going to destroy him. That's I think the implication is he's your brother. Al tashisi es libech ladavar hazeh. Don't pay attention to this thing. Vateshiv Tamar b'shom mema beis Avshalom achiha. And so Tamar remained in her brother Avshalom's house, and they translate shomema here as forlorn. I would just point out, we'll see later on, Avshalom has a bunch of children, including a daughter. The name of his daughter is Tamar. So the commentaries will point out that is just as an honor to his sister. I think this is almost, to me, like it's almost like a weird inversion of Yibum. Like she's been destroyed here, and he wants to perpetuate her name, right? That's what you do with Yibum, is to try to maintain the name and the dignity of the person who passed away. I think that's what he's doing in naming his daughter Tamar.
So you're saying that Avshalom is mentioning that it's the brother, because he's just saying don't hurt him.
Either don't hurt him, or you're going up against your brother. There's what you're doing. You have to realize who you're doing it to, and what the consequences of that are going to be. What he doesn't say, and probably should say, is, "Don't worry, I will exact revenge for this." V'hamelech David shama es kol hadavarim ha'eleh vayichar lo ma'od, and David hears this, and he gets really upset and does absolutely nothing. This is the beginning of David consistently doing absolutely nothing, and this is the biggest change after the Batsheva incident, is that David takes a much more passive role in all of the misfortune that befalls him. V'lo diber Avshalom im Amnon l'meiravi ad tov. Avshalom cannot speak to Amnon for good or for bad. Ki snea Avshalom es Amnon, because Avshalom hates Amnon al davar sher ina es Tamar achoso, because he raped Tamar, his sister. The other thing to point out, we mentioned a few references in the text to the story of Shechem. The story of Shechem makes Amnon look infinitely worse, right? After the rape of Dinah, so Shechem wants to marry her. He treats her in a
He wants to do a nationally unifying, like, no, I really love her. I want to be her. Yeah.
Right.
I want to do the right thing.
He loved her more.
Right. He loves her more, and here Amnon goes in the exact opposite direction. Just shows you how correct Tamar was about what a lowlife Amnon really is. Yaakov also keeps quiet after the rape of Dinah. Let's do 21. Oh no, we did 21. What did I have here? Oh yeah, can't speak whether good or bad. The brothers can't speak to Yosef peaceably. Lavan's not able to speak to Yaakov, good or bad, when Kadosh Baruch Hu tells him he can't say anything to him. And then we get to 2 years passing. We also have 2 years passing by Yosef when he's in the pit. Okay, let's keep going. Vayhi lishnatayim yamim. It was 2 years later. This is very Machiavellian to sit on your hands for 2 years. Vayu gozazim la Avshalom babal chatzor. And now we have the second sheep shearing of our book. Asher im Ephraim vayikra Avshalom l'chol b'nei hamelech. And Avshalom calls all of the sons of David to participate in this very celebratory event. Vayavo Avshalom el hamelech. And Avshalom comes to the king after 2 years of not saying anything whatsoever. He's inviting Tati to the sheep shearing party, right? But he knows that David is not coming, because after chapter 11, we learned that David doesn't leave the palace. Not for a war, not for nothing. He's not leaving for a war. He's certainly not leaving to come to some sheep shearing festival, right? So he invites David, knowing full well, A, David is not going, and B, David's got to send someone in his place. Who would he send? He's going to send the Bechor, right? What Robert Posen points out is that the whole second half of this chapter is like a mirror to the first half, where you have Yonadav as the kind of the grand schemer. Now you have Avshalom as the grand schemer. Vayomer Melech el Avshalom al b'ni, right? This is the same al language. Al b'ni, al nanelech kulan v'lo nichbad alecha v'ifratzbo v'lo aval aleches v'varchehu. So David says, no, I can't. I'm not going to burden you. No, and then Avshalom, please, you got to come. He's tugging on his coat. He's not going to go. And instead, he blesses him. What about my brother Amnon? Why can't you send somebody? You're not going to come, so you got to don't disrespect me. Send Amnon. Why should he not go with you? And he keeps pushing and nudging him, Avshalom, vayishlach ito as Amnon. And here again we have David sending someone to their doom. So David sends as Amnon v'es kol b'nei hamelech, and all of the other princes are going to the sheep shearing festival. Vayitzav Avshalom es na'arav, and Avshalom commands his attendees. The other time we had sheep shearing is with the story of Yehuda and Tamar, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, we have parrots a bunch of times. I'm not going to get into all of that. Okay, so now he tells his Na'arim Lemor, saying, Ru'una ki ketov lev Amnon bayayin. right? This is the same thing that we had with Naval. When his heart is filled with is good and filled with wine. The Amarti Aleichem, I'll give you the signal. Hakuas Amnon, I want you to kill Amnon. Again, the person who is the enemy of the Naval isn't the one responsible for killing him. In the story of Naval, HaKadosh Baruch Hu kills him. Over here, it's the lads. V'hamisem oso, I want you to kill him. Al tiru, don't be afraid. Haloki anochi tzidisi, I'm commanding you. Eschem chisku v'yu libnei chayil, I want you to act like brave soldiers. V'yasuna re Avshalom la'amnon kasher tziva Avshalom, and they do exactly as commanded. V'yakumu kol bnei hamelech v'yirkivu ish al pirdo v'yanusun. The second that Amnon is killed, everybody bugs out, right? They don't know if this is the beginning of wholesale slaughter. They don't know if this is a power move of Avshalom wanting to take over the kingship. Remember, he's third in line. They're also in line. The best thing to do if you're trying to eliminate your competition is eliminate all your competition. So they don't know if this is just a personal vendetta or a power play. So everybody gets in their Lamborghinis and they take off.
They're all younger than him,
They're older. They're the older ones.
aren't they? Third.
Avshalom is third in line, but I don't know. I don't know who these sons of David are. If I were them, I would also get out of Dodge the second I saw this. V'yu hema baderech. V'hashmu'a ba'a el David lemor hika Avshalom es kol b'nei hamelech v'lo nosam rehem echad. David gets bad intel. After this happens, what David hears on Twitter is they're all dead. All of his children are dead. Vayakam hamelech ve'ikras bigadav, and now David does what David did in the last parak, and he comes and tears his bigadim vayishkav arza v'chol avadav nitzavim kru'ei bigadim, and all of his attendees are also tearing their clothes. This is a terrible tragedy. Okay.
The tragedy is that it's not being publicized that Amnon got what it was coming to.
Wait, perfect. Vayan Yonadav ben Shim'a achi David. So Yonadav reads the tweet. He says, wait a minute. Vayomer. Yonadav says, Al Yomar Adoni es kol hanarim b'nei hamelech misu. It's not that everybody's dead. It's one guy. Ki Amnon livado meis. Ki al pi Avshalom haisa sum'a meyom anoso es Tamar achoso. It's Avshalom. Avshalom's been planning to kill Amnon since the day that he raped your daughter Tamar, his sister. So there's a lot that is going on over here. First of all, how does Yonadav know this?
Because
he was Amnon's buddy.
That's my reading is exactly that. My reading is this whole thing was orchestrated by Yonadav. He knew that if he sends Amnon to be in seclusion with Tamar, that A, Amnon's going to rape Tamar, and B, Avshalom's going to take revenge. So if I'm Yonadav and I want to take Amnon off the board, the best thing for me to do is A, get David involved, because then there's cover and lack of culpability, and B, have someone else do my dirty work for me and get rid of Amnon.
Master,
right, he's the chess master. That's my reading.
But we don't know what he has against Amnon.
No, I have no idea what he has. Either what he has against Amnon is that Amnon's a sicko and he wants to get rid of him that way, or maybe he's David's nephew. Maybe he's making a play for the throne. It depends how Game of Thrones that you want to get over here.
Yeah.
Or this is just him exhibiting his brilliance, right? We said at the very beginning he's a chacham. Maybe he put two and two together and he figured out
he sees the guy staring daggers at his brother. He's like,
right.
All right, I think I know what's going to happen now.
Right. In other words, this was a personal thing. Avshalom has no pretensions to the throne. Whoever said that he killed everybody, that doesn't make any sense. You know what makes sense? He killed one guy and everybody freaked out.
Or maybe he went to the sheep shearer.
He righteously killed one.
Oh, maybe he went to no. Well, how would he get there before everybody else?
Maybe he came back.
Could be. Viata, al yasem Adoni hamelech el libo davar. Don't pay attention to this. Don't let this really get to you, David, that your eldest son was killed. Lemor kol bnei hamelech meisu ki im Amnon levado meis. It's only Amnon that's dead. Vayivrach Avshalom, and Avshalom now has to run away. Vayisa hanar hatzofe eseinav vayar v'hinei am rav holchim miderach acharov mitzad hahar. And now the lookout sees there's a giant caravan of all of David's kids that are heading down from the hillside. Just like I said, this is a great way for him to position himself as top advisor, right? He saved David the heartache of expecting all of his children to be dead. In fact, they're all on their way. And this is the last we meet of Yonadav, by the way. Everybody is weeping, a great bitter weeping over the death of Amnon. Avshalom barach. Avshalom has to get out of Dodge.
Mattresses.
Right. So where does he go? Vayelech el Talmai. What?
Who's he running from?
He's running.
David.
From David. He killed Amnon. Someone's got to be a Gol Hadam over here. Vayelech el Talmai ben Amihud melech Geshur. He runs away. Remember, we said that Tamar and Avshalom, brother and sister, they share a mother. Their mother's Macha. Macha is from Geshur. So he runs to Geshur. Who else, when he was afraid that the king was going to kill him, runs away to his non-Jewish relatives? David. David runs away to Moab, right? So Avshalom follows in the footsteps of David and runs away to Geshur. Abel al beno kol hayamim, and David mourns over his son. We're going to assume the son he's mourning over is Amnon, for a long time. Kol hayamim. Avshalom barach. This is like the third time we told you this. Vayelech Geshur. Vahi sham shalosh shanim. He's in Geshur for 3 years. Vatachal David hamelech latzeis el Avshalom, and David was pining for. I think there's a question over here in terms of the girsa, but we'll say that David he's missing Avshalom ki nicham al Amnon, because he's now been comforted over the death of Amnon ki meis, because he understands and has internalized that Amnon is dead, and now he doesn't want to lose his other son as well.
I mean, you could read that also, that he's mourning over Avshalom. Oh, my golden boy, like when.
This is the end, beautiful friend. Thank you for joining us on our journey of learning, and I hope you will tune in for another episode soon, Mirz Hashem. Be well.